Good morning. Could you tell us your name, please, and spell your last name for the court reporter?
My name is Kyle Devries, Devries.
How are you employed, sir?
I'm employed through the Wisconsin Department of Transportation, Division of State Patrol.
And do you have any specific assignments with the State Patrol?
I do. Currently, I'm assigned to our Technical Reconstruction Unit.
And what is the Technical Reconstruction Unit?
It is a group of individuals with specialized skills and advanced training that work with crash reconstruction and crime scene documentation.
All right. And how long have you been assigned to that unit?
About 3.5 years.
All right. May I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
Mr. Devries, I've shown you what has been marked for identification as exhibit number 279. Could you tell me what that document is?
This document is a curriculum vitae. It summarizes my crash reconstruction related education and instructor experiences.
And let's just hit some of the highlights. Can you start with when you first started working in the Technical Reconstruction Unit? What type of training did you receive to become involved in that unit?
It starts with basic crash investigation, technical crash investigation, advanced crash investigation.
Could you just slow down just a little bit?
There's a lot to go through. Crash reconstruction itself, and then there's additional specialties through that. There's forensic mapping, there's computer-aided drawing, there's specific caveats in crash reconstruction to motorcycle or commercial motor vehicles. It's an extensive list of training that is continuously ongoing.
All right. And do you have ongoing training as you go through or as you continue to work in the Technical Reconstruction Unit?
That is correct.
What type of ongoing training do you have?
Could be whatever comes up and then it's available. Anything to further our education in regards to any certain aspects, whether it's, again, with human factors or forensic mapping, differences, new technology that comes to light in the use of that as well.
All right. And Mr. Devries, as far as your work, in addition to receiving training, are you also involved in teaching?
That is correct. I'm also an instructor. I teach our State Patrol cadets as well as other law enforcement agencies and technical reconstruction as well as forensic mapping.
All right. And when you, in this case, were you asked to assist in some way?
I was.
And by the way, Your Honor, at this point, I'd move the admission of Exhibit 279.
Any objection to 279?
No, we agree.
Okay. 279 will be received.
Now, were you asked to assist in some way in the investigation in the matter that we're here in court for today?
Correct. I received a phone call from Sergeant Richard Day from the Dunn County Sheriff's Office. He informed me that they were investigating a death that occurred in their county. He informed me that the Wisconsin State Crime Lab was also en route to assist with their investigation, and they were requesting the Technical Reconstruction Unit to assist in forensically documenting or mapping out the scene.
And so that was essentially your involvement, is to do forensic mapping?
That is correct.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about forensic mapping. How do you do forensic mapping?
There are several different ways, generally through the use of technology, whether that be survey-grade instruments such as total stations, or 3D scanners. Sometimes it goes to simple hand measurements.
All right. In this case, what methods did you use to map the scene?
I used two methods. The first being a Trimble R10 total station. It operates off the GNSS survey, or it's kind of like GPS, but it's a global navigation satellite system. It takes highly accurate measurements. And we can use those measurements. They're collected in a data collector, and we can use those measurements in a computer drawing program to create scale diagrams.
All right. And you said you used the second method?
Correct. Second method, we used a 3D scanner, a Faro Focus XT3D or 330. Sorry, a Faro Focus 330 laser scanner. It's a laser scanner, and it takes hundreds of thousands of points in a 360 direction. Those points are collected and stored into a point cloud, and we can use those in a 3D computer software to render an image or put in a program so that you can see what was taken, and you can also take measurements from that 3D as well.
And do these then render you accurate images of your scene and what is at the scene?
Correct. The scanner, while it's taking measurements, it takes a second round. It also takes photographs and overlays them with the measurements. So when you put the point cloud data in the computer, it attaches the images to the point cloud data so you can see and move around through the scene itself.
And so when you're working from the program, does it let you essentially just step into there and be able to see what you would see if you were actually there at that time?
Basically, yes.
All right. And can you then, with that information, while you're using the program and viewing the scene, can you take measurements to find out how far certain things are from other things?
Yes, you can.
And how do you do that?
Through a function in the software. Again, all the data points that are in there are to scale. Again, I can click on a point, click on another point, and it will give me the exact distance.
All right. Now, besides mapping of scenes like this, what other types of work do you have to do or do you do as part of the technical reconstruction unit?
I guess I'm not sure what you're getting at other than as far as,
Do you do accident reconstructions as well?
Yes.
And is that the same technology and systems that you're talking about here?
Yes, we use the same systems for that.
Now, in this case, you created a number of diagrams. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Right. I'm just going to stay up here for a moment, showing you what has been marked for identification as exhibit number 282. Can you tell me what that is?
That would be a diagram of basically all of the scene that I collected. Including in that diagram are general measurements of distance.
And,
Distance.
and that would include basically the location where the defendant's vehicle was found, and then over to the Don Sipple residence?
Correct.
Your Honor, I move the admission of Exhibit 282, ask to publish it to the jury, and then I'm going to ask some more questions about it.
Agreed.
Any objection? No objection?
No objection.
All right, Exhibit 282 will be received.
Can I get up and move, or is there a place Your Honor would suggest that I be so that I can see what's going on? I'm not.
Sure. So, Trooper, why don't you step on down?
Hang on just a moment. What do you have in mind, Mr. Nelson?
Can we either, if we put that back about 5 feet, I think I can see it from here.
All right, we have room. Let's move it back.
How's that?
That's great, thank you.
And ladies
Can
and
the
gentlemen,
jury
jury,
all see it?
are you able to see it?
All right. So, Trooper, why don't you step on down, and why don't you explain for us a little bit about what we're seeing here. Start at the bottom right corner of that exhibit. What is that area?
Okay. In the bottom right corner here, I'm actually going to move to this side. There is a trailer and a vehicle that was located off of an entrance from 430th Avenue. That's what we see here. There are some tire marks that followed behind the vehicle. Down this road here, this is actual 430th Avenue. This would be the top of the diagram is facing north. So going to the west, we have several different driveway entrances labeled by addresses, and the distances from basically the car to the road and the road to the far residence.
All right. And so what is the distance then from the car to 430th Avenue?
It's approximately 658 feet.
All right. And the distance then from the end of the road to the Donald Sipple residence, which I believe is identified as E7614.
Correct. And that distance is displayed here is approximately 1,226 feet.
So in percent of a mile or amount of a mile, how far is that total distance?
It's approximately 0.35 miles.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have as far as that one. Why don't you come on back? We're going to move to the
If
next.
it's helpful, we don't object to any of these. You can just put them up and go
Okay,
as
great.
quickly as you can, or as you want.
Sure. Then we're going to move at this point in time to our exhibits. 283 through 285.
No objection.
All right, are those pre-marked or?
Yes, they are, Your Honor.
Okay. Exhibits 283, 284, and 285 will be received.
So, Trooper, I've got up here now Exhibit 283, I believe it is. Let me just make sure again. Yes. Can you explain what we're seeing on Exhibit 283?
Exhibit 283 is more of a snapshot of the entire diagram. In this, there were certain things that were identified by investigators. Here we found there was 3 pieces of evidence that was located. The circle with the E and the letter, the E stands for evidence. And then the alpha character A, B, and C correspond to whatever type of evidence that was found and would be on that evidence log.
All right. And so when law enforcement found the evidence, they had you come out and actually map the locations of those pieces of evidence?
That is correct.
All right. And what was evidence marker that is labeled C? What was that as you understand it?
I believe that was part of a cell phone.
Okay. And how about evidence marker A?
I believe that was also another part of a cell phone.
All right. And evidence marker B?
I believe that was a knife.
Okay. All right. And so the knife was found at the location that the arrow is pointed to?
Correct. It would be right here, just off the shoulder of the roadway.
And just before the driveway to the Donald Sipple residence?
Correct.
All right. Thank you. Let's move to Exhibit 284. What are we looking at on Exhibit 284?
Exhibit 284, again, is a blown up area of the entire scene that you had seen before. However, this we're focusing on the roadway that came south from 430th Avenue. In this particular diagram, a footpath was noted in the roadway itself. So that's where it was highlighted here. And again, 2 additional evidence markers was located by investigators. The difference here with these ones being numerical numbers is that they were found by a different agency.
All right, those were found by the crime lab?
Correct.
All right, and the other ones, the letter ones were found by Dunn County Sheriff's officers?
That is correct.
All right. And as you understand it, evidence markers 1 and 2 were what?
I believe they were foot cast impressions.
All right. Finally, Exhibit 285. I'm not going to try to ask you what each one of these are. We'll cover that with the next witness. But can you explain what Exhibit 285 is?
Sure. Exhibit 285 is basically a blown up version of where the vehicle and a trailer was located. Again, this would be south of the 430th Avenue. The Wisconsin State Crime Lab had identified numerous items of evidence. Each evidence that's labeled here corresponds with their evidence log.
All right. And so they had either tent markers or stick-on labels marking what those evidence items are?
Correct.
And then you mapped out exactly where those were and created then this scale diagram?
That is correct.
All right. Thank you. Let's move on then to the other portion of your work, the 3D scanner portion. Trooper, I'm showing you what has been marked for identification as Exhibit 281. Can you tell me what that is?
It looks like a CD or DVD of the Wisconsin State Patrol's scene recon, as it's what it's labeled here.
All right. And that contains the work of your 3D scanner?
Okay, yes.
All right. I move the admission of Exhibit 281 at this point, Your Honor.
Any objection to 281?
No, we agree.
All right. Exhibit 281 will be received.
All right, then, Trooper, what I'd like you to do, you've got your computer hooked up over here. Can you step to that? And I'd then like you to bring up that program so that we can see what it looks like, and then I want to talk to you about some of the items in there.
Sure.
Trooper, what are we looking at here?
So in the program, it's called Trimble RealWorks. In this program, what we're currently seeing here is the point cloud of all the measurements that was originally taken from the 3D scanners. There were 6 scans that were completed around the vehicle, and that's what we're seeing right here. And what I'm going to do is open up the Scan Explorer, which allows it to incorporate the photographs that were taken with the scanner as well.
So I see a yellow triangle there. Can you explain what that yellow triangle means?
The yellow triangle are the setups where the scanner was located. So it helps in here, as we can see down in the lower right-hand corner, you can see where each triangle was set up. That's where the scanner locations were around the vehicle.
So there are multiple scanners there?
Nope, just one scanner, just moved around in 6 different times.
Okay. And so this is looking for one of those points that you see those multiple triangles in the small diagram.
Correct. In the lower right-hand corner, it's represented by the green triangle. That's where we currently are in the scene right now.
All right.
I didn't get that last part. Represented by the green triangle. What?
That is where we are currently located in the scene.
All right. And the green item to the side, is that trailer we were talking about?
Yes.
All right. Can you, with this, can you move around them to see different portions of it?
Yes, I can.
And how do you do that?
Just by clicking the mouse and moving around through the scene.
Okay. Let's go back, turn a little bit. I want you to go back to the trailer. So we're looking at the trailer kind of flat on as best you can. Okay. There were 2 evidence markers on there, I believe, correct?
Yes.
All right. Can you, and Ms. Hoffmeyer will testify to what those are. Can you tell us what the distance is between those 2 evidence markers on that trailer?
Sure, I
And
believe.
if there's a better
Yeah, let me-
angle to get it from, that's fine.
So because I can't see where the actual evidence is, I can see where the stickers are. The measurements will be between from the center of the sticker to the center of the next sticker.
And I apologize, what are those sticker numbers? Am I jumping ahead?
Looks like 13 and 15.
It's 14. They're 13 and 14, counsel.
13 and 14.
Thank you.
And so that distance is approximately how far?
Just over 6 feet away from each other.
All right, great. Now, can you, from this angle, can you also then, does this also show the vehicle itself?
Yes, it does.
All right, can you scroll around to the vehicle or turn around to the vehicle? All right. And so it also shows then the various other evidence markers that are located out there?
Correct.
Now, are you able to, as part of this, can we see the tracks of the vehicle and what happened with the vehicle as far as it getting stuck?
Sure, there's several different things that we can do here to see kind of near the center a little bit on the bottom. You can see some disturbed ground. I can zoom in a little bit, which appears to be some type of tire mark. From this angle, trying to see if I can see it from a different angle. So we kind of got washed out a little bit from our backlight that we had at the scene. There was virtually no light out there, so we had to bring in supplemental lighting.
Okay. Is there a way that you can get it to see it a little bit more clearly?
Yes, we can turn off the pictures, basically, and move it into a grayscale intensity so we can see that.
I need to still have a touch on your sorry.
Turn off the color into a grayscale.
And so now, when you have the color off, are you just looking at what the laser scanner did itself versus with the pictures that it takes?
It's a kind of a combination of both, but you're seeing more of the laser scanner than you are of the picture.
Okay. All right. And so what does it tell you and what does it show you as far as the tire marks at that point?
From what I can see, it looks like at some point the vehicle came to a stop, and it looks like it appeared it may have backed up.
Okay. And Trooper, if you can try to speak a little bit more and maybe even move that microphone a little closer. I'll try to make sure I speak up loud enough, and then if you can just use the microphone. And by the way, when were you at the scene on this?
I believe I arrived at the scene, it was shortly before 10 p.m., and we worked there for a couple hours while the crime lab was processing the scene. I had to wait for them to identify their evidence, and then we took our scans. So we're there well into the night.
All right. And was that 10 p.m. on March 23rd?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Let's move to the area. Can you get us to the area where most of the evidence markers were between the vehicle and the trailer? What is that kind of black circle in there?
This black circle here will be found at every scan station. It can't scan directly underneath it. That's why there's a black circle here in this particular scan. If I were to move to a different scan, such as adjacent to it, the circle is gone, just because now that data is now captured in this scan, not versus the other one.
Okay.
So again, same thing here for this scanner. It just can't see directly underneath the unit.
All right. Let's go back to the one you were at just a minute ago. There we go. So this is showing us then in 3D and in basically scale that scene.
Correct.
All right. Can you zoom in on, does it show any, are you able to observe any footprints in this scan?
I believe near marker number 5.
All right. And it appears that there was some blood in some of those footprints?
Yes.
And what type, did you observe or did you have a chance to observe the two types of footwear of the individuals that were there?
I did not, other than the footwear that was already present there at the scene, which was identified.
All right, and that was a pair of boots?
I believe so,
And
yes.
do you have that on your scans?
There's one up here,
Okay,
near evidence marker number 4,
all right,
and I believe near evidence marker 3.
okay. All right, great. Thank you. Can you zoom back in on those footprints? And are you able to get an approximate size of those footprints?
I can. Again, it's going to be an approximate size because I don't have the exact dimension of where each foot impression would start and stop.
Okay.
I can only go to there.
Okay. All right. And again, you can't tell if those are complete, if they start and stop or anything?
Correct.
All right. Great. Thank you. All right. There also appears to be some other items there. Can you get us in on those a little bit closer?
Any specific number?
Numbers. It appears there's kind of a gold or tan sweater there or something on top of
Oh, here?
there. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Great. And as you understand it, things were the way that at least law enforcement reported that nothing had been moved as of the time you're doing your scans?
Correct.
All right. Okay. Let's go back again. Can you get us to any of the images that show us the tracks leading to that area?
Sure. So again, from behind the vehicle, I'm going to go back into the grayscale so I can eliminate my backlighting. We can see that there are some tire marks here that do run along back up towards 430th Avenue. Let's see where there we go. And here we can see some tire marks leading up to the vehicle.
And the tire marks there appear to be off of what is actually the road onto the grassy or area?
That is correct.
And is that how how you observed them at that location?
Yes.
All right. Can we go back to, let's go to the other side of the vehicle. If we go back into color for now. Can you just zoom in a little bit more on the vehicle itself? All right. Thank you. Just to give the jury that perspective. So that would be from the other side of the vehicle, which.
Correct. You're looking at the passenger side of the vehicle.
Right. And now let's go back to the grayscale and let's take a look at the. All right. What are you seeing as far as the condition and the situation with the front tire there?
The front tire looks angled slightly to the left. It appears to be not quite sunken down, but there's some mud that's kind of squished up against the tire.
Right. Does it appear that there's mud spatter on the vehicle itself?
Yes, it appears. You can see on along the passenger door here that there is some spatter.
All right. Can we go to the front of the vehicle now? And stay in the grayscale. Just zoom in there a little bit. Did you observe any actual footprints in the front of the vehicle?
I did not.
All right. Did you look for them?
I don't specifically remember looking for them. At the time that I was there, the temperatures were dropping. The ground was getting harder.
Okay. How was the ground when you first got there?
It was still kind of semi-hard. This area here, the grassy area, was definitely much harder than the actual driveway or road itself.
Okay. All right. But we did have footprints on the side of the vehicle.
Correct.
All right. Did you observe any footprints in the back of the vehicle? And can we go to the back and take a look?
I don't believe there was.
Okay. Okay. Good. look on the side of the vehicle here, the driver's side. Turn back. Does it appear that there is a covering over the, what would be that rear side window there?
Oh, right here,
Yeah.
the vent window? Yes.
And let's go to the front window as well, driver's side. Is that the condition? It appears, is the window down?
It appears that the window is just slightly more than halfway down.
Okay. Let's go down. I want you to come down to the body there. Let's take a look. Can you just zoom in on the scarf there? Thank you. And that would have been the condition of that scarf at the time that you arrived on that scene?
Correct.
All right. And finally, can we go to the other side of the vehicle? All right. And I want to zoom in on the front window again. Can you put it on the, is it,
You might get,
yeah. And that window appears not to be down, or at least partially down, like the other window. Is that accurate?
it looks that the window is up or closed.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. I do not have any other questions for Trooper Devries, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Nelson? Yeah.
Yes, please. Mr. DeVries, you were there on the evening of March 23rd, 2018, is that right?
That is correct.
And you continued to be there into the early morning hours of March 24th, right?
Correct.
You were there when it was dark out,
Yes.
at night?
Yes.
You didn't go back when the sun was up to that scene to do these scans.
No, that is correct.
And the reason is you just go out there as soon as they call you, right?
Generally, yes.
Okay. The choice to whether to wait until there's daylight isn't necessarily your choice. It's the lead investigating agency's choice. Is that right?
Correct. We initially scanned the vehicle at night when it was there. After we completed our scanning and all of the evidence was collected, the vehicle, to my knowledge, was removed from the scene.
And you weren't there when the vehicle was removed?
That's correct.
You don't know how it was removed?
Correct.
You don't know if it was able to be moved without a tow truck?
That is correct.
I just want to go through some of these diagrams with you briefly.
Sure.
Exhibit 283, which is, you guys know that one?
Yep.
That you were asked questions about this, is that right?
Ask questions
You
from...
were asked questions by the prosecutor?
Yes, that is correct.
And one of the questions was the driveways, correct?
Yes.
I'm correct in this is not Mr. Sipple's driveway, agreed?
That is not Mr. Sipple's driveway.
Correct. Mr. Sipple's driveway is
is-
farther down the road, correct?
Correct.
Mr. Sipple's driveway is... You help me out.
282.
In Exhibit 282, you're able to see Mr. Zipple's driveway farther down the roadway, is that right?
That is correct.
So the footprints mentioned here by 283 are by a different driveway, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And then on 285, the driveways as they're shown between Mr. Sipple, which is at E7614, and his daughter's house at E7616, it doesn't show them connecting on your map, agreed?
Correct.
But in reality, they do connect, is that right?
I can't recall if they connect or not.
All right. Would it refresh your memory to see a photo of that?
Yes, it would.
I'm going to show you, you have to mark it, I guess, but
Well, if you're refreshing his recollection, probably you have to have it marked.
I'm going to show you photo number 182 from disc VV. See if that you recognize that photo. Do you recognize that photo?
It appears to be like a aerial view of the area west of the initial scene.
So you recognize it.
Yes.
And it appears to show the residence E7616 in that photo, correct?
Yes.
And it appears to show a connection between the two simple residences. Is that correct?
Let me take another look. There's some trees in the way that make it kind of difficult to see. But it appears that the roads are connected, yes.
Great. And just sometimes you just miss stuff, right?
Actually, in this particular instance, it wasn't, I guess other investigators said that it didn't appear to be necessary to map that part of the roadway.
Okay. You don't know, you know that there was footprints, correct?
Correct.
And from footprints, I gather you inferred somebody was moving on their feet,
Correct.
walking, running.
Something.
Some way up on 2 feet, correct?
Correct.
And occasionally you could see the path that that person took, right?
Correct.
But sometimes you couldn't always see the path, right?
Correct.
Whether because it might have been on a hard surface and you didn't pick it up.
Correct.
There's no, for lack of a better term, trace of where it was, right?
Correct.
So based upon what you know, you don't know the exact footpath that somebody took, correct?
That is correct.
And you don't know whether the person, if somebody walked down 430th Avenue towards the Sipple residence, if they took the first driveway in at the daughter of Don Sipples, or if they took the second driveway at Don Sipples based upon physical evidence. Agreed?
Agreed.
And so in that instance, it might be important to know whether or not those two houses connect each other. If somebody took the first driveway and then nobody's home and they walk onto the second house.
Sure.
Okay. But you're not part of the investigation team. You're there, for lack of a better term, kind of taking orders, right?
Yes.
Again, I mean, obviously you have some discretion and you exercise that, but you don't know the details of the case, right?
That is correct.
You're investigating what they tell you to investigate.
Yes.
All right. The maps that we have there, the 4 big blow-ups there, those are 2-dimensional representations of that area, correct?
Yes.
As opposed to what we were seeing on the screen there when you discussed Exhibit 281, Disc N. That's the 3-dimensional depiction of it, correct?
Correct.
And you talked about the footprints. Is it? I want to ask you some about those footprints again that were on evidence marker 5 that you showed. If you need to go to the computer,
Okay.
let me know. You took measurements of those, correct?
Correct. There were approximate measurements. Again, I can't tell where that impression starts and stops.
And I don't think you'd said, so the approximate measurements you had of one was 1.06 feet,
Correct.
and the approximate measurement you had of the other one was 0.80 feet, correct?
Correct.
And from those 2 footprints, you weren't able to determine whether it was a left foot or a right foot, were you?
No.
But you could certainly, you've seen the bottoms of shoes before, correct?
Yes.
You recognize the 4 foot of the bottom of the shoe, the front of the shoe,
Yes.
as opposed to the heel of the shoe.
Correct.
And those prints that you observed appeared to, the front of the foot was closer to the car, correct?
Yes.
And the heel was closer to the trailer.
That is correct.
So assuming someone's walking in a normal fashion, the footprints were in a direction towards that open back door of the car, correct?
It appeared that way, yes.
And those were 2 footprints there that you saw, correct?
Yes.
And those are the only footprints in and around the car that you made note of, agreed?
That I made note of, yes.
Okay. Are you aware of anybody else making note of some other footprints?
I don't believe so.
Okay. And so again, you're following, there's a whole crime scene out, a group of crime scene investigators out there, correct?
Correct.
You're all, I imagine, helping each other out.
Yes.
Hey, did you see this? Hey, did you see that?
And kind of that's how it went. Generally, when investigators are identifying their evidence, I let them do what they need to do. They place their evidence markers down. They say, this is the evidence that we found. Could you please go ahead, go through and document it?
But you, as a trained and experienced law enforcement officer, if you saw something that caught your eye and you saw that there wasn't a marker, you'd certainly point that out to the other professionals that are there.
Absolutely.
So again, in that sense, it's a team approach very much, right?
Yes.
Want to make sure at that point you're documenting anything and everything.
Correct.
You don't know what is or what isn't important, right?
That is correct.
You just want to capture it accurately as you can.
Yes.
And you captured those 2 footprints going into the back seat of the car.
They were in the 3D scan, yes.
There was some discussion about some blood being on the ground there, right?
Yes.
Obviously, you don't know, based upon your scene evidence evaluation, you don't know when that blood got there on the ground.
That is correct.
So the footprints, I want to ask you, well, just before I get to the footprints, I want to talk to you about Exhibit 280 and the path of the tracks. Is that all right?
Okay.
How do you want me to set this up here? Officer, wherever you're comfortable, is it okay if you stand and I ask you questions while you stand?
Absolutely.
All right. Can you see that?
I can see it fine. Jersey.
All right. So I want to ask you questions about this portion of it over here. First off, I guess on the, what do we call this? The right or the left side, orientation-wise? Which way do we look at it?
I would say it's, the north arrows at the top, I would say it would be towards the east of the diagram.
Okay, so on the east side of the diagram, there's this brown line, correct?
Correct.
And that documents the muddy road / driveway, whatever we want to call it, right?
Yes.
You call it a roadway?
Road access point, I don't believe there was an address associated with it. It was just some type of access from off the road.
Okay, so can we agree to call it the muddy road?
Sure.
All right. So this brown mark here on the east side marks the muddy road, right?
Yes.
And as you're going, north is top,
Yes.
south is bottom.
Correct.
So if a vehicle was traveling from the north to the south, there is a incline that goes to about where the 658 mark is that right?
That is correct.
And then after you get to the top of that incline, as you go further south, you're going down the other side of the incline, is that right?
It's pretty much level off to the top of that. We can actually see that in the 3D diagram.
Okay, but would this be the north half of the muddy road, we would agree, is an incline from north to south?
That is correct.
And the bottom portion of that then is either flat or a slight decline?
Yes.
All right. And I think I know, but I want to ask you, it's not a trick question, where's the sun in the day during this time? What would get sun exposure and what wouldn't get sun exposure?
Well, being in March, obviously, sun's, the way the sun goes, obviously the northern half of the road would get less sun as it's facing away. Sun would be more towards the south, obviously, in the wintertime. So that the top portion of the southern portion of the road would receive more sun.
The portion below 658 would receive more sun, in your opinion, right?
In my opinion, yes.
And obviously, when you were there, it's late March in Wisconsin, right?
Yes.
The weather changes daily, if not hourly there, correct?
Correct.
You can have a big warm-up and things start to thaw out, right?
Yes.
And you can have a freeze and all of a sudden all the surfaces get hard again, correct?
Correct.
So it very much depends upon the day,
Yes.
especially in late March. Is that a yes?
Yes.
So you would agree that initially this portion of the road, the north side of the road, would more than likely be a harder surface than the south side because it had less exposure to the sun. Agreed?
Generally.
And we see here that on the south part of the road that there's some tire tracks that appear to go off the road. Is that right?
That is correct.
You've driven in mud before, I would imagine?
Yes.
When you've driven in mud, you try to find the hardest surface, right?
Yes.
So it would make sense to you that if someone's stuck in the mud, they might try to go to a harder surface like the grass. Agreed?
It's possible, yes.
And you had testified before, I believe, that the area around the car, the grass was a much harder surface than the mud.
Correct.
All right, so that's would be consistent with your observations of the scene, right?
Yes.
All right. Did you note this portion here where there's tracks leading from the mud road onto the grass? Are there any photos or observations that you made of that muddy portion of it?
I didn't take any photographs. I did note that the area was quite muddy and quite disturbed. It was difficult to determine if any tire marks had come off of the, as we're calling it, the muddy road. Where I was able to definitively see where the tire marks were is when it became off of the muddy road.
Great. So you could deduce that the vehicle in question was probably on the muddy road and then eventually left the muddy road where the tracks come off onto the grass. Is that right?
That's
That would be your conclusion?
Yes.
And it appears as if when it initially got off the grass, there was again some maneuvering to try to make sure it continued in a forward motion.
Yes.
And then it managed to do so for some time.
Yes.
And then it got into a softer surface.
Yes.
That would be your observations? Okay. And when your observations of the vehicle at its resting point is, it appeared stuck in the mud?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Do you know anything about the timing of when the vehicle was there and when people were at other places?
No.
All right. Would you agree that the portion of the roadway that is exposed, the northern portion of the muddy roadway, would be softer in the afternoon when the sun is shining on it than it would have been earlier in the day?
That would make sense, yes.
Okay. And what we see is a footpath here on Exhibit 283 on the northern portion of that muddy road. Is that right?
Correct.
And then it appears to, at least using your deduction skills, come from the grassy area then onto the footpath. Is that, or onto the muddy road, correct?
Yes.
And then at some point that footpath ends in the middle of the muddy road?
It's just I wasn't able to discern any more areas where footprints could be observed.
Okay. And was that due to the hard surface of the area or just so much water and mud and
Could have been
disturbance?
a combination of both. There was water at the end of the driveway itself near 430th Avenue.
Okay. And so for whatever reason, you just could no longer determine whether those were footprints or not, right?
Correct.
The footprints that are marked here on the footpath, those appeared to be from stocking feet or bare feet?
I could not tell that. It was a path of footprints.
And on what we know from Exhibit 284 is there was some casings done at E1 and E2, is that right?
To my knowledge.
Is that what you called them?
Yes, foot cast impressions.
Foot cast impressions, thank you. Okay. And so we'd have to look at those foot cast impressions to determine whether or not it was a shoe-worn footprint or a non-shoe wearing footprint, right?
Correct, and that is outside of my expertise.
Okay. That's all for now on these, I think. You can have a seat there. Thank you. So you testified about the lack of, I want to ask questions now about around the scene, which I think perhaps best we can just go on this one. Exhibit 285, can you see that, sir?
Yes.
All right, so I want to ask questions about the general area of where the car was stuck in the mud, okay?
Okay.
Can you just again, top is north,
Yes.
bottom south?
Correct.
So that makes that,
West.
all right, I'm always worried I'm going to mix that up. So on the east side of the car, also the driver's side of the car, is where there were the 2 footprints that we previously discussed and you'd measured, is that right?
Correct.
And that's somewhere in the area of E5, is that right?
That is correct.
That would be consistent with the marker that you'd seen there, right?
Yes.
And that ends up to this point closest to, arguably closest to the door other than the boot that we see there?
Correct.
Okay. And that's the only footprint that you made observations of anywhere around the vehicle?
That is correct.
Now, doesn't mean that people weren't there walking around prior to your arrival. It just means you did not observe any footprints, right?
Correct.
And the lack of footprints has much to do with the surface, right?
Yes.
Right? And so, despite that you were able to see some footprints in the surface there, somebody could have been walking in the area near there, but the surface changes from foot to foot.
It can, yes.
And so then all of a sudden the same person walking, you just can't observe the footprint then.
Correct.
So whether or not there's footprints in the front of the vehicle doesn't mean people were or were not wandering around in the front of the vehicle.
Correct.
Same with on the passenger side of the vehicle.
That is correct.
Same with the rear side of the vehicle.
Correct.
Same with around the green trailer.
Correct.
Same with the area in front of the, in between the car and the trailer in front of the driver's door.
Correct.
Same with in the area around E15 and E12 here on the green trailer, right?
Correct.
So you can just say what you did see, correct?
Yes.
You can obviously say what you didn't see,
Yes.
but there's less conclusions you can make about things that you were not able to observe. Agreed?
Correct.
Those are the only questions I have. Thank you.
All right. Any redirect? Mr.
Yes. Trooper, when you're doing your mapping, are you mapping when you do the maps that we see with the total station, are you mapping everything that's at the scene or only certain things?
I try to get as much as possible. You can get too much. There are some things that just, aren't necessarily important or obvious to investigators. But anything that's identified by investigators is obviously clearly marked. Any type of geographical markers, large trees, telephone poles, anything out of the ordinary will generally tend to mark those because those will stand out. But as far as trying to get everything, that's almost an impossible task.
All right. And when you're using the 3D scanner itself, well, actually, first, with the total station, does it matter if it's night or day when you're using the total station?
No, it could be night, day, rain, sun with this particular unit.
All right. And with the 3D scanner, for the scanner part of it, does it matter whether it's night or day?
It doesn't, other than at night we have to use supplemental lighting in order for the photographs to show up.
All right. So the scanner itself that's scanning all these points will scan whether it's pitch black or high noon in the middle of summer.
Correct. And in this particular unit, the 330 stands for a range of 330 meters, or which is just over 1,000 feet. So that is about 1,000 feet is about the limit, far limits of this particular unit's range.
All right. And, but the photographs, you need to use supplemental light.
Yes,
All right. So if you're just use the grayscale part, which is just pretty much just the scanner, that's going to be the same whether it's night, day, or whatever.
correct.
All right. And the photographs, you add light so that those show up a little bit better.
Correct.
Okay. The footprints that you observed in your scanning, were those marked as evidence markers?
Yes.
Okay. The scanner itself, will it show everything, whether it's marked as an evidence marker or not?
If the unit can basically see it, it will grab what it can, yes.
Okay. So it'll show the image of it, whether it's marked as an evidence marker or not.
Correct.
And are there times when you see things on the scanner that become important that maybe were not noticed when you were initially at the scene?
It can happen, yes.
I don't have any other redirect. Thank you.
Can you recross?
Yes, can we approach,
Yes.
ask you the first round, some questions about the gold article of clothing on the ground near the doorway?
Okay, doorway of the vehicle?
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe the best, could you come down and pull that up, just so we all know what we're talking about? And you're going to be pulling it up on exhibit number 281, CDN. All right, thank you. And you can actually go, I think it's probably easier for all of us to hear you up there. I'm not going to ask you to manipulate it anymore.
Okay.
Okay, so on the screen is the ground on the driver's side of the vehicle. Is that right?
That is correct.
And we see in there evidence marker 4 to indicate the right boot. Is that right?
I believe that's what it was indicating.
Evidence marker 5, which is one of the footprints leading towards that open door.
Yes.
And evidence marker 6, which is a blood stain half on the ground, half on a dark blanket. That's what it appears to be.
Yes.
Somebody else will be here to correct us if we're wrong.
Yes.
And so, and then we see the open doorway.
Yes.
On the ground, on top of the ground, there's this big dark, what appears to be a blanket.
If you're referring to the blue object under number 6, yes.
Yes. Okay. I didn't know if it was. We'll call it dark blue. Is that
All right, that's fine.
And then next to that, or on top of that, is, I believe, what was called a gold sweater. Is that right? Or
It's something wrapped in the blanket.
okay, you don't know what that is.
That is correct.
You didn't pick it up.
No.
You did not collect that.
No.
Okay. It was there at the scene when you got there, correct?
Correct.
When you got there at the scene, Ms. McCandless wasn't there, correct?
Correct.
You don't know what she was wearing on her person when she met with the Farmer Police Hospital on March 22nd, agreed?
Correct.
And so anything obviously that would be on her person wouldn't be still at the scene, right?
Correct.
Okay. All you're observing is there's some gold piece of cloth that's there at the scene, right?
That is correct.
But you don't know what it is.
Correct.
All right. Those were the only follow-up questions I had. Thank you.
All right, again, Mr. Dufour, I'm sorry. Mr. Dufour, do you have any redirect based upon that cross, given that was?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Trooper Devries. You may step down. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a short break before we take up the next witness. So we'll excuse you to the jury room. All rise, please. Okay. Mr. Nelson, you indicated that you had some matters you wanted to take up regarding Ms. Hoffmeyer before she's called as a witness.
Yes, Judge. I've been handed plaintiff's exhibit number 519, a copy. I'll hand a copy, Your Honor, so you know what we're referring to. It's a photo We're not objecting on foundation grounds. I understand that it's a photo of a letter that was found in, I think, the trunk of the vehicle in question. We're objecting to the admissibility of the contents of that photo as it's hearsay. It's a letter written by somebody to, I think, somebody else other than Ms. McCandless, and it's hearsay. It's also irrelevant. It has no relevance whatsoever to anything of the case. So.
All right, well, before we go any further, what is the state's position with respect to Exhibit 519?
Thank you, Judge. The purpose for bringing it in through Katie Hoffmeyer is that she's the person who can say where it was located, which is correct. It was found in the vehicle when she did her inventory of the items that were located in the vehicle when it was found in the farm and then taken to the Wausau Crime Lab. The content will come in. The background there is that this is a letter drafted by Jenna Van de Zand. Jenna Van de Zand, and she gave this letter to Jason Mengel on March 19th, 2018, so just a couple days prior to Mr. Woodworth's death. This came after a conversation she had with the defendant. So the content isn't really important to come in through Katie Hoffmeyer. That will be brought in later through Jenna, her testimony. It's entirely relevant to the defendant's state of mind and the information that was relayed about a conversation that the defendant and Jenna had to Mr. Mengel, and the entirety of that relationship between the defendant, Mr. Mengel, and then how that worked with Alex Woodworth and John Hanson, those three things kind of coming together all at the same time, is why this is relevant not only to state of mind, but also to this testimony of Jenna Van de Zand about what information she relayed to Jason Mengel about her conversation with Ezra McCandless.
So it's multiple layers of hearsay. It's irrelevant.
Okay, I understand that the defense position at this point, but really I think that argument then related to the contents of the letter would really be more appropriate before Ms. Van de Zand testifies. But for purposes of, I guess, where it is located, when it's located, and so forth, without it being published to the jury in terms of what it is for its content, I guess I don't see that as an issue for Ms. Hoffmeyer at this point in time. Again, as long as the jury doesn't see the contents of Exhibit 519.
The defense respectfully disagrees. If it's irrelevant, it's irrelevant. If it's not eventually proved up to be relevant by Jenna Van de Zand, then it's not relevant for Ms. Hoffmeyer. There's all kinds of things that I imagine that they found. We don't need to go through the list of the Tic Tacs that were in the car, the list of, I mean, it's not relevant at this point. If at some point we want to, I will agree to the foundation, and we can take that up with Ms. Van de Zand, but I don't want it marked. I don't want it shown. It's not relevant. I don't think they've made an offer of proof to show that it's relevant at this moment in time. I don't think we need to bring back Ms. Hoffmeyer. My objections in front of Ms. Van de Zand are going to be for the relevancy issues, the foundation that it was found someplace in the car on this date. We will agree to that. But it doesn't need to be marked and put in front of with the jury with Ms. Hoffmeyer.
Why don't you give me a moment to read the letter?
Judge, briefly,
yes.
I believe there's reference to an Alex in that letter, and if Your Honor doesn't know yet or might not recall, there's an Alex Zink involved in this case. And so the Alex referenced in that letter, it's defense position that it is not Alex Woodworth, which again questions the probative value of the letter.
Judge, I don't see a reference to Alex, and
I didn't have the letter in front of me, so fair enough.
I didn't see it, so I'm going through a second time to see if I missed it. I don't see any reference to an Alex. So what is the state's position if there's a stipulation that there would be foundation as to when and where it was found and by whom when we get to the witness that authored the letter?
My preference is just to have it identified as an exhibit, not published to the jury. Then it's cleaner. I understand the defense position. It's not a huge issue for us one way or the other, but I think my preference is to bring it in through, have it marked as an exhibit, have it be identified as where it was located, and then not published to the jury until, unless and until Ms. Van de Zandt can establish relevance to this case.
All right, well, I'm going to allow the state to offer that evidence that this is found, won't be published to the jury, they won't be told what it is, and we'll take up the actual admissibility of the content of the letter at a later time.
So it's marked but not being offered and therefore not being received with this witness?
That's my understanding. It would just be identified as to, where it was found, when it was found, by whom it was found, and, when it's tied up, if there is relevance, then if it's offered, we'll argue on whether it will be received, or allow you to argue whether it can be received at a later time.
Okay. I understand. I just wanted to, hopefully I don't just need to object during it. And so if that all goes smoothly, I won't,
All right,
but
well,
it's preserved.
I tell you what, your objection will be preserved as noted here on the record. And if you don't want to object in front of the jury, that's fine. Your objection will be preserved. Okay? And I'm assuming you're going to object when we get to the other witness.
Yes, we'll need to take it up before that witness.
Okay.
Or maybe
And, so where was Exhibit 519? So we put it back where it was. Thank you. Okay, and I just wanted to make a note about our sidebar at 9:38. Essentially, Mr. Nelson was asking whether the state would object to him going beyond the scope of redirect in a recross, and Mr. DeFore did not object, and so Mr. Nelson was allowed to go beyond the scope of redirect with the last witness, Mr. Trooper Devries. Okay, does anybody need a restroom break? Ms. McCandless? Yes. So why don't we take care of that right now before we bring the jury back in? Give about 5 minutes?